Help for Ian victims.
Each pallet is about 50 boxes of aid.
From the same Doral organization that helped in Puerto Rico and Ukraine. Coastal communities such as South Florida.
We're ground zero for the impacts of climate change.
Concerned over sea level rise. And the Dolphins' backup quarterback in the concussion protocol. These stories and more coming up on Newsbreak.
Hello, South Florida. I'm Samantha Gutierrez.
And I'm Julian Davis. Today is Monday, October 10th, 2022.
Live from the South Florida Media Network's Biscayne-based studios in North Miami, this is SFMN Newsbreak.
South Florida support heading to the Hurricane Ian strike zone. It's courtesy of a Doral charity organization called Global Empowerment Mission.
The network's Nicole Ardilla looks closer into the operation.
After Hurricane Ian struck the west coast of Florida, victims can find support from the community and organizations like Global Empowerment Mission. No power, food, water, or home. More than 10,000 families are being assisted by the nonprofit's emergency response. Trucks are sent daily from the Doral headquarters to the southwest coast, thanks to businesses and volunteers who come together to sort, pack, and load the donations.
So each truck, well, depending on the truck, can hold up to 26 pallets. And each pallet is about 50 boxes of aid, but also we are sending pallets of water, pallets of supplies, whatever we get in here, diapers, toilet paper, paper towels, all the things that are needed.
For Sofia Gomez, a nursing student at Florida International University, volunteering is a duty she has to the community, especially one that's lost so much.
It doesn't cost me anything. I have the time to do it, and I think especially in times like these, like disasters, when disasters happen, we should all come together so that we can help others out.
South Florida community members are also contributing to help the victims by simply donating basic necessities.
The truth is, I didn't imagine that the hurricane was going to be so big. Many people lost a lot, and it's painful to be comfortable at home where you have everything. Thank God we didn't get hit, but I think we should think about others and go out to donate.
If you'd like to contribute to this cause, Global Empowerment Mission is receiving donations weekdays 9 to 5 and Saturdays 10 to 3. In Doral for South Florida Media Network, Nicole Ardilla.
Search and rescue operations are underway this morning after a deadly landslide hit Venezuela. It was yesterday when a landslide brought destruction to the Venezuelan city of Las Tejeres. It was caused by an overflow of 5 streams of the Las Tejeres River. 25 people reported dead and more than 50 people are still missing.
This morning, Ukraine is dealing with the aftermath of a new round of Russian strikes. Tension between Russia and Ukraine are escalating as the war drags on. Overnight, Russian cruise missile strikes hit the Ukraine city, killing at least 12 civilians and injuring at least 87 others, including 10 children. The strike is considered payback for the alleged Ukraine blast that damaged a symbolic bridge that connects Crimea to the Russian mainland.
It was connecting these two places that Putin said, would be together forever as he took over that part of Ukraine.
Despite the explosion, Russia says it's resuming car and train traffic through the bridge. Ukraine and U.S. allies are worrying about further retaliation as Russian President Vladimir Putin threatens to use nuclear weapons.
Protests for Iranian women, which have spread across the globe, happening over the weekend in our nation's capital. The network's Victoria Duran from D.C. Bureau is in Washington this morning.
Demonstrators have been gathering here in Washington, D.C. and in other cities across the globe to protest the recent death in Iran of Masha Amini, who was arrested for not wearing a hijab or head covering and whose family says was tortured and murdered by Iranian authorities.
Masha is just one of many young women who have died while fighting for their freedom, the most recent being 16-year-old Serena Esmailzadeh, who is believed to have been beaten to death by police, and 17-year-old Nika Shakarami, who was found dead, both of whom's death were ruled a suicide by authorities. Amini's death has sparked a women's uprising in Iran and around the world, with protests occurring even here in D.C.
There is a lot of atrocities going on in Iran right now, so we are being an extension of their voice in the United States and hoping for change, for freedom for all of the women around the world, but particularly the Iranian women are leading right now for the fight of human rights.
They are fighting for freedom. We've lost so many young, people in the past few weeks just because they wanted freedom and basic human rights, and they've been killed by the government.
People are coming together from all different countries and saying enough is enough, and we're ready to stomp it down.
Protesters want to call attention not just to Amini's death, but to the plight of others who have been arrested since her death and the situation for women in Iran. Reporting for the South Florida Media Network in Washington, D.C., Victoria Duran.
More than 500 demonstrations took place in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. It's called Women's Wave Initiative, and it's in anticipation to the midterm elections next month. Our D.C. Bureau reporter Lydia Delgado has more from Washington, D.C.
We're here at the Women's March in the nation's capital alongside thousands of others in similar gatherings across the country. Organizers of this march say that they are mobilizing voters in order to make sure that more women in support of reproductive rights and social change are elected. Marchers headed to Capitol Hill shouting chants and carrying signs in the shape of waves as part of the Women's Wave action plan organized by the Women's March.
Need to have governance that reflects the population, and governance is way overpopulated with white males.
We need women in office to understand women's issues. We can't have men who don't understand why we're here and what we're fighting for, making decisions for us.
Earlier this year, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, a decision that has rallied supporters of abortion rights to go to the polls.
Presenting a unified front is super important. Even if the issues may not directly correlate to me, I think that people who look like me should definitely show up and show out, because pretty much a lot of our history has been defined by decisions of predominantly white men.
Supporters of the march say that this is only one of many demonstrations leading up to Election Day, November 8th, and then even after. To find those events, you can visit womensmarch.com. I'm Lydia Delgado in Washington, D.C., reporting for the South Florida Media Network.
The Miami Dolphins continue to struggle as injuries keep on piling up against the New York Jets. Teddy Bridgewater, who started playing for the Dolphins, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa against the Jets, was injured and put into concussion protocol on the very first play of the game, much like Tua, who is also under concussion protocol. That meant backup rookie quarterback Skylar Thompson went in for his first regular season, and it did not go well as the score ended with Dolphins 17, Jets 40. The Dolphins come home to play the Minnesota Vikings this coming Sunday at 1 p.m.
The owners of new iPhones are accidentally calling 911 from theme parks.
That's still ahead, and so is his story.
We need to develop computer models to predict the flooding in the future. So these observations at hyperlocal level helps us to calibrate this model.
Global warming leading to special concern from people living near sea level, including those right here in South Florida. Stick around, we'll be back in just 2 minutes.
Type 2 diabetes can have a big impact on your life. But how can it be prevented? Well, the first step is knowing if you have something called prediabetes. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org.
If a natural disaster shows up at your doorstep, you can't just turn it away. That's why it's important to prepare for emergencies before they show up. Go to ready.gov/plan to find the tools and tips you need. And make a plan today.
really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rising concerns here in South Florida over sea level rise. The effects of climate change are becoming more and more visible to communities right here in South Florida.
That's why organizations such as Florida International University's Sea Level Solutions Center have organized with the community to develop resiliency options for vulnerable areas. On Sunday, volunteers went to Arcola Lakes Park to take part in the 7th annual Sea Level Solutions Day, a yearly citizen science event which involves collecting flood data, which informs researchers to develop ideas that enhances the resiliency of vulnerable low-lying communities.
We need to develop computer models to predict the flooding in the future. So these observations at hyperlocal level helps us to calibrate these models.
We're ground zero for the impacts of climate change, especially when you think about sea level rise. So it affects a lot of parts of our community, and the more we know, the more we can kind of take progressive actions on it.
After getting their sampling kits and a brief training, citizen scientists went to several locations in southeast Florida.
So the big bottle, it's for nutrients, so dissolved inorganic compounds and dissolved organic compounds. And from the smaller bottle, it's just E. coli bacteria. And that's the really bad bacteria that we definitely do not want on the waterways.
Normal levels is 75, and it's been like 300 plus.
Citizen scientists all over Dade County will be traveling to sites like this one to take water level measurements and measure nutrients in the water, the results of king tide events. These king tide events bring all sorts of problems for South Florida, including water pollution,
which causes all fish kills, and it can cause toxic diseases for us. It's not just the waterways, it's actually for your safety.
Marvelous Garriga offers ways we can help reduce our impact on the waterways we enjoy.
Your waste matters. Your waste will get into the waterways. So if you keep your streets clean, if you do not litter, you're helping so much more than you think.
911 dispatch in some communities are getting fed up this morning over some new Apple products. Apple suggests users with the iPhone 14 and Apple Watch 8 to put their devices in airplane mode before boarding a roller coaster to avoid making false calls to 911. New crash detection technology causes several accidental dials to emergency dispatch last month while users were riding roller coasters at theme parks in Ohio and Illinois.
That's all the time we have for Newsbreak. I'm Julian Davis.
I'm Samantha Gutierrez. Get more news anytime at sfmn.fiu.edu.